Hello and welcome to this edition of Deccan Herald Newsroom. Today we are discussing the recent death of 21 children in Madhya Pradesh. These deaths have been concentrated around three districts around Chhindwara in the southern part of the state, and most of them have been caused due to the consumption of cough syrups by children. Presence of a particular compound which has led to this. To discuss this issue, we have today Kalyan Ray, my colleague from Deccan Herald, who has covered health and science for a very long period in time, almost 2 decades, and Prashant Reddy, who has co-authored a very famous book, The Truth Pill, on the drug regulation mechanism in India. Thank you both Kalyan and Prashant for joining us for this discussion. I'll start the discussion with Kalyan. Kalyan, but this is not the first time that we are encountering such problems in India. There's a certain history behind it, the use of diethylene glycol, a compound, a solvent in the medicine, especially in the cough syrup, isn't it?
Yeah, that is correct, Sumit. Since 1972, there are at least five distinct cases in 72, in 86, 88, 98, and 2019, okay, where children died in various parts of the country, okay, because of consumption of adulterated cough syrup. And in each cases, okay, DEG was the culprit. And then in 2023, we also had these cases where WHO issued a global alert because of children's death in Gambia after consuming cough syrup produced in India. So they are also, so both in Gambia and then in Uzbekistan, children died after consuming cough syrup made in India, and those syrups were contaminated with DEG. So this is not new.
Yeah, Kalyan, let's bring in Prashant. Prashant, as Kalyan was chronicling, there is a history of these incidences. But despite regulatory mechanism, why has there been a recurrence of such incidents in India and abroad for the drugs produced in India? Aren't the regulatory mechanisms not good enough?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's putting it mildly. The regulatory mechanism is a complete wreck in this country. And I mean, there are several issues, for example, as journalists, as you guys as journalists, if you want to try and access older inspection reports of this particular facility, you can't find it because the government doesn't make it publicly available, right? In other countries, they make available inspection reports. The moment drug inspectors know that their name is going to be in an inspection report publicly available, they will start doing their job a little bit more seriously. See, because this particular tragedy, the stunning aspect of it is the facility appears to be in a completely ramshackle state. And the inspection report that is now being made available by the drug inspector is saying that there's something like 300 flaws in the facility. This is not something
you're talking about the Tamil Nadu facility, am I right?
Yeah, about the Tamil Nadu facility. This should have been caught in earlier inspections. Why didn't that happen? That's a question to ask.
But who is mandated to do that? Is it the state authority or the central?
Yeah, I mean, so this is one of the big problems with drug regulation in India. So it's a bit complicated. If you could just give me 2 minutes to explain it.
Yeah.
The law was enacted in 1940 when India was still a colonial state. And because of certain constitutional restrictions then, the way it was designed was that the central government would be in charge of setting standards and taking care of imports, while the manufacturing licensing process, which is the core component of quality control, was delegated to state governments. So every state has its own regulator, drug controller, who is issuing manufacturing licenses, which now means that India has 36 regulators, that is one for every state and one for every union territory. And they're all confined to operating within their own state. For example, a drug inspector in Tamil Nadu cannot go raid or inspect a facility in Himachal Pradesh, and vice versa. So you have this fragmented system of regulation where there isn't enough information sharing, so a lot of stuff falls through the gaps. And also, drug regulation is not a priority area in all states. There are states where this is just not, this department is not funded at all. It is not a political concern for the party in power. There are other states which at least have some labs, etc. So in 2018 or 19, the government did amend the rules to facilitate joint inspections. That is, the union and state governments can do inspections together, but the power to issue and cancel the license is still lies with the state government. So you've got this odd, they've this odd sharing of powers between the states. And this particular case is a great illustration of why this system is, is so complicated from an accountability perspective, because the controller who was responsible for the plant is located in Tamil Nadu for this particular facility. The tragedy has taken place in Madhya Pradesh. The only authority that can change the rules is located in Delhi, which is the health ministry. So this is, in a country as dysfunctional as India, this is a recipe for disaster. So one of the big recommendations that has been happening for the longest time is to try and centralize licensing powers with the union government. Even if that doesn't happen, because of, there are a lot of political considerations. The pharma lobby is very, very powerful in India. It's very enmeshed in state and national politics. So the only other way to do this is to force them to at least be transparent and facilitate information sharing between different parties. So that, at least once information is available, people can at least take steps to protect themselves.
Kalyan, one of the problems in this particular case has been the use of a particular compound, which is also sold to drug manufacturers and also for industrial use. Now, the concentration of a particular compound, which if it crosses a certain limit, can cause these problems. So when this compound is being sold by the manufacturers of this compound to the drug manufacturers, is there a process by which it is regulated, tested, or how does it happen? Because that's where the checks and balances probably could happen.
Yeah, ideally there should be checked, but the thing is because such quality controls do not happen in most of the, a large number of manufacturing units. Now, India has more than 3,000 drug companies, almost 11,000 manufacturing units, and I am not sure that how many units are regularly checked by the drug authorities. After the Gambia and Uzbekistan case, Government of India started something called a risk-based inspection system. And as of August 2025, only about 900 units were checked under this particular system. And remember, we have 11,000 units. So it's almost nothing. And then the problem is that this particular solvent, DEG, now pharma industry needs something else called propylene glycol. Now, DEG is either adulterated purposefully by the vendors, or there are genuine mistakes, but then these mistakes do not come up in the absence of a quality control mechanism at the end of the manufacturing units. So even just 2 days back, when CDSCO wrote to the state authorities, so the CDSCO asked them to check if the vendors are proper, if the vendors are kind of supplying the proper quality solvent, if records are maintained at the manufacturing units, things, such kind of basic things are still being reminded by the CDSCO to the state authorities. And also, if you remember, as Prashant was saying, this is a large country, 34 states and UT, and almost all of them have their own administration to monitor the quality of the drugs. These units do not cross-talk among themselves, and there are hardly any public information from any of this authority. So if you look at the quality of the drugs produced in Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand, you won't find much information in the public domain.
Okay, so that's one of the problems which Prashant was also saying. But Prashant, WHO has, over the years, as Kalyan was mentioning, has expressed concern. This time too, they had written to the central government, but there is a recurrence despite that. So why do you think there is a, government knows that there is a problem, it is recurring, and yet certain loopholes continue to remain there. So what sort of mechanism you think could be put in place to see that such things don't happen in the future, or at least you have a regulatory mechanism in place to deal with this preventive side, on the preventive side?
See, the government knows that there's a problem, but they're not willing to acknowledge. So the last time, if you remember, I think Kalyan will remember this, when the tragedy happened in Gambia and the WHO, raised a global alert for that particular brand manufactured in India. The then Drug Controller General of India, he sent a very nastily worded letter to the WHO saying that you're tarnishing the image of the Indian pharma industry. Similarly, they sent even my co-author and me legal notices when we said something in an interview about the functioning of the national regulator, where they accused us of maligning the government and the drug regulator. So the government isn't willing to even publicly accept a lot of times that there is a problem. The moment they accept there's a problem, they should at least try and conduct a fact-finding mission. In the olden days, the old India, when a tragedy like this happened, there would be a commission of inquiry which would produce a report, at least documenting what went wrong. When the tragedy happened in JJ Hospital in Bombay in 1986, the state government of Maharashtra set up a commission of inquiry under Justice Linton. So we at least documented, we knew what went wrong. He uncovered a web of corruption and inefficiencies, etc. We've not seen that happen recently. Like after Gambia and Uzbekistan, the government should have at least tried to understand what the problem is, made public a proposal, a report, identifying issues, and tried to conduct stakeholder consultations. But there is a complete paralysis in the Ministry of Health when it comes to anything to do with drug quality and control. In fact, in 2023, they decriminalized the manufacture of substandard drugs in the infamous Jan Vishwas Bill of 2023. So this is a massive political economy problem where the government is, they are running at the whims of the pharma industry. They're willing to take steps to fix this issue.
One last question, Prashant. The pharma industry issues not confined to India, even in developed economies like US, Western European economies, the issue has persisted over the years. But still, what do you think are the best practices that the Indian regulator and the system can adapt or look into to see that these issues don't recur, these problems don't recur as far as the Indian industry is concerned?
See, there is no developed country which has killed so many children with its pharmaceutical products. Like the last such scandal that happened in the United States was in 1937. After that, they've not had another DEG poisoning. We are having it every few years, and these are the cases which are caught, because there are a lot of cases where I'm sure this is going under the radar because it is extremely difficult for doctors to diagnose DEG poisoning. These cases have come to light because 12 kids landed up at the same government hospital showing the same symptoms. And even after that, it took them a month to trace this. So we have an exceptional problem. You can't wash this away saying that even other countries have problems like this. This is an India-specific problem. And it's not just limited to cough syrups. In Karnataka, if you remember, in November, 5 young mothers died at a Bellary hospital because of contaminated IV fluids. That same company then ended up killing another 2 women in West Bengal, 2 or 3 young mothers in West Bengal. So this is a systemic issue, and it is happening because the drug controllers are not doing their jobs. We need an entirely new law. We cannot continue to put band-aids on this 1940 law that was enacted during colonial rule. We need a brand new law centered around the concept of transparency in regulation. People like journalists like Kalyan and you should be able to access this information. That's the only way even you can conduct your journalism and hold the government accountable. Unless the government starts making information publicly available, this problem is not going to correct itself because there is no silver bullet. The price of quality control is eternal vigilance. So we have to ensure that every step of every inspection is made publicly available. Only when bureaucrats know that journalists like you are going to be looking at their inspection record, will they start behaving themselves, and there will be some fear in them of accountability. Until then, nothing is going to change.
Kalyan, let me bring you in here. In this particular case, a particular doctor who had prescribed the medicine was arrested. Now, the concern has been raised by many medical practitioners also. So, as Prashant was saying, where does the buck stop, in terms of accountability, culpability? What do you think?
I think transparency is a big factor. If you remember the COVID vaccine days, so if you look at the process of clearing the COVID vaccines by the US FDA, the entire hearing by the experts of a particular vaccine product was open to public to see and decide. And if you compare that with the process with the CDSCO took in clearing the vaccines for Indian market, this was highly opaque. Okay, hardly anybody knew that what kind of argument went inside, and all we needed, all we got at the end of the meeting is a kind of very brief note, okay, which just give you the basic information. So as I think in the past Supreme Court said, it is sunlight is the best disinfectant. We need to have kind of bring in much more transparency into the entire drug regulatory system.
Thank you, Kalyan. Thank you very much. And Prashant, thanks much for joining us. That's all we have in today's edition of Deccan Herald Newsroom. See you tomorrow at the same time. Good night.